Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. This is Joseph O'Leary. I'm an Auburn University building science student studying abroad this semester in Italy. We are based out of Urbino, Italy, which is on the east coast in the March region near the Adriatic Sea. And I've had a pretty great experience here. I've visited about 20 different cities all throughout Italy, and I've met a lot of great people along the way and made some great experiences. Um, I've visited, to name a few, Rome, Florence, and Pisa. And along the way, I've kind of wondered, I've seen some buildings and been like, wow, this was so many years ago that this was built. I wonder what all went into building it. And coincidentally, I now have an assignment to make this video and discuss some of the places I've been and what I imagine went into them as far as construction. So, without further ado, I'd like to discuss the Roman Colosseum, for example. We went to the Roman Colosseum a couple of times, and it was built, you know, it started in 70 AD, which was a long time ago. And I was pretty inspired by the size of this building and the fact that I imagined there was very little help that went into building it. I think there were just a lot of real hardworking people and obviously some pulleys probably, but the materials in this building, they were definitely pretty heavy. It's got a lot of concrete block and just heavy, brutal, rugged materials. Historians claim that there were some prisoners who were used as slave laborers to help complete this project. And I should mention that it took 10 years to build the first edition of the Roman Colosseum. So there was just a whole lot of backbreaking work involved. And I can't really imagine anything aside from that. Next, I went to the Duomo, which is the cathedral in Florence. It began later than the Colosseum. It was in more like the 1300s, but the size of this building was just unbelievable. And not only that, but probably the weight too. As you can see in the photo, it's got a whole lot of marble finishes as veneer, and I imagine that there were definitely some pulleys involved in lifting that stuff, as well as some early edition scaffolding, probably. They surely couldn't have lifted marble up on a ladder, so there were probably some pulley systems involved, and perhaps they used animals as well to help relieve some of the work on the human workers. There's a pretty massive dome atop the Duomo, which came a little bit later on, but again, before cranes or anything like that. So I imagine that there were some pretty intuitive scaffolds and pulley systems that were used throughout the construction of this thing. So most notably was the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Photos don't do it justice. It has a 4-degree lean, but when you're next to it in person, it looks like the building's, significantly leaning over. This was obviously because of an inadequate foundation. Apparently the foundation is only 3 meters thick, so 9 feet deep. And they probably thought that was sufficient from all the hand digging they did, It seemed like a whole lot of work, but obviously was not enough. Again, I imagine that there was some scaffolding and a whole lot of manual labor involved, as well as for the foundation, the piles, they probably have some piles involved, and I can't really fathom how they would have driven those aside from just with, you know, a sledgehammer. So between the hand digging and the manual driving of the piles, it was just a whole lot of work, and it makes you really consider how easy construction seemingly is now by comparison with the tower cranes and machinery and equipment that we have at our disposal. But Pisa was definitely the most perplexing of any structure that I've visited here in Italy, and definitely something to consider going forward when, discussing whether or not a certain foundation is significant. Well, there are consequences to inadequate work, and it's really cool that this building is still around for people to see and to study and to give an actual physical example of the need for proper bracing from the bottom. And that's the main takeaway from Pisa. So in conclusion, I've seen just about every notable structure here in Italy throughout my 13 weeks here. The Pantheon in Rome, for example, was another one that it's this great big dome that's really tall and it has this opening at the top. And that, as well as all the cathedrals I've been inside of, it really just proves that humans are so capable of just outstanding work. The buildings, the attention to detail all throughout every building in Rome that I visited was just second to none. And to think they did all that by hand, they chiseled these finishes and everything else. It's really just really impressive. And I'm uber grateful to Auburn and to UTSA and Professors Anoop and Ron for their time and providing us this experience, which I will take with me for the rest of my life. And that's all that I've got. Thank you.